body and equipment, which people think is the single most important aspect.
The DNA of the activity.
It is. So when do we start the training? When do we build the vocabulary? When do you combine with equipment, the body, and so forth?
I think it is criminal to not exploit your marching band experience as far as the training. Kids are so open to new ideas at auditions and also those initial weeks of band camp, and that's when you can get your training in. And remember, your training is the vehicle through technique to get you to be able to do different skills. That's the most important thing that comes out of the training, is that it increases their ability to do things that are cool.
Technique is the prescribed method for achieving a skill. This means defining the most efficient way to get to success. Anytime you say do it this way, you're prescribing a technique. Be clear though that technique itself is not the skill. It's the means to the successful achievement of the skill. Training ensures the consistent application of technique. This usually happens through repetition to the point that a technique has been internalized by each performer. This comes from our history of precision-based achievement and our need and appreciation for doing things alike.
And that they all show the agreements and the way they do them the same and do them together. That all comes through training, which isn't the same as like rehearsal prep. Rehearsal prep or warming up the body is not training.
No, it's not.
Those are different things, even though they may happen at the same part of rehearsal.
Right.
They're very different things with different focuses.
Right. And another good resource is when you have the improvisation aspect, have the kids go out and show you what they can do, what the music speaks to them about.
Yeah, use the show music. That's awesome.
Right, use the show music. And that's like at an audition or at a rehearsal, especially set up for that. So that's another resource.
What I love about that is it also puts the performers in the role of creative partners. And so they become a way to help you build your vocabulary, help you build all those distinguishing characteristics and details and nuances that happen through their exploration.
They will show you their expressive dynamic range without being told that this is expressive dynamics. They will do it intuitively. Fast, slow, strong, soft, whatever.
And when we talk about dynamics, which are the gradations of space-time, weight, and flow, there's more of that information is in the manual. Those are such important aspects, through your exploration of qualities through the choreographic choice in both movement and equipment. But again, I'll go back to the easiest shortcut to do that is to interpret the music. Anybody that interprets the music literally will almost always have a greater dynamic range than those people that kind of do random acts of color guard, just spinning in a white blank canvas. Because you seldom, when you're just starting from choreography with no impetus, you very seldom will work in a dynamic range. You just kind of spin, 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 spin. But if you're working with music as your impetus, you almost always have a dynamic range built in. It's not to say that it can't happen without musicality, but anybody who writes musically almost always has a wider dynamic range than anybody who doesn't.
Now the question will come, musicality does not appear on the IA score sheets.
It doesn't.
However, dynamic range and expressive dynamics do appear downstairs.
They do.
And you get the musicality and that other expressive range upstairs as well.
Absolutely. So it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, you're getting 4 for the price of 1. And
it's one of those things, when you're talking about a musician, it's not so much when they play the music, but their musicianship. So downstairs rewards the musicianship, if you will, and upstairs rewards the musicality, their ability to be musical. So I think either way, your dynamic range is your key into all those 4 credits that happen there. It's really awesome.
Big question here is, when do you start combining body with equipment? The answer is
as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. And do keep in mind that when you're using the equipment, it's like partnering in dance.
Oh, I love that.
That whole piece of equipment becomes your partner, and you're going to caress it and love it and work it and blend with it, just like dancers would. So think choreographically in that manner.
Yeah, that's great. I think when you put it in that framework, you also come up with interesting and different answers than your competitors. And again, it looks like a wider skill set even from there. I always have a series of instructors that talk to me about about, we don't have a movement phrase or a dance feature, if you will. And because of that, they don't think that they're getting the credit in movement that they think that they should, the points. And the first thing I've challenged when I sit and look at their work is they have to understand that you simply make different choices. Once you put a piece of equipment in your hands, you're not making the same choices from a movement standpoint that you necessarily would if you were unencumbered by that equipment. And usually when you see a dance feature, they're almost always in and out of the ground, and they go immediately into the air, or they'll do an inversion or a handstand or a plank or some kind of strength move and stuff. And so often when you all of a sudden you put a flag or a rifle or a saber in their hand, and those choices that they don't seem to appear in the choreography.
The equipment takes over.
The equipment takes over, and you don't come up with the same movement options. So ultimately what happens, it's not that the judge is unwilling to credit you, but so often you're not making the choices that are increasing the range and variety of skills from a movement standpoint once you put equipment in your hands. So if you're going to make that choice to not have the dance feature, know that somewhere in the equipment book, you still got to create the inversion. You still got to go in and out of the ground and immediately up into the air. And you can do that easily inside and under tosses or right after tosses. There are great ways to do that. Or a plank, there's some equipment things that work in a plank. But anything that you would do in that dance feature, I think you kind of owe it to yourself to figure out how can you now coordinate equipment in. And then do yourself a favor during this workshop period with your own writing in the backyard. Start with an equipment phrase and do the very archetypical thing that we're trying to get away from. Now add body to it, okay? Everybody does that at some point or another, where you get this great equipment idea, but it just looks like it's not coming to life because you're standing in second and not doing anything, right? And then go invert the process. Start with an awesome movement phrase, something that you might even consider a dance feature. In fact, put the equipment down and write the movement phrase, and then force yourself to layer that on and let it not just be at tuck or at cradle or all those other sign language positions that say, oh, we didn't get to this yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really trying to find a way for it to be active and involved in the movement phrase. And what you'll do is you're going to find in order to accommodate the equipment, you're going to start expanding that phrase. And it's going to become a longer thing as you work in from equipment to build into the next movement phrase. And I think you're going to find that you're going to grow creatively when you work to combine movement and equipment in those different approaches.
You know what? What used to be beginning is no longer beginning. I don't think we have beginning anymore.
No. My friend Michael Rosales would always call it, it's just lean, reach, reach. And you just don't see lean, reach, reach anymore. It's awesome.
We have grown exponentially as an activity, and without a doubt, at the body and equipment level, huge strides in that area.
Hey, so after they find their choreographic choices and how they fit into the overall design of the program, then the next thing we do is cleaning. You like to talk about cleaning.
I think there's a difference between training and cleaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to be careful. No, they're not the same. You have to be careful when you're cleaning that you don't clean the passion and the emotion out of what you're doing.
And the dynamics.
Down
on the odds and up on the evens.
Yep. Carl talked about musicality at an IA level. Critically important, and it does so many different things. I mean, it guides your writing, but it also invites an understanding of what the personality is.
Sure. Because
the music will tell you this is what the style and, the whole persona is about. Don't sell short the young color guards. All children are born knowing how to play act.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah. And I think that the younger you get them and the more you lay it on them, the more you're going to get out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. They all want that to facilitate their own performance.
Absolutely.
It's the performers that are key, not just the skills.
That's absolutely right. Designers, you have to be in touch with your choreography people. You have to give them a sense of what your vision is. Maybe you don't function that way. Maybe you let them write something and then you stage it. You have choices.
Sure. Designers should have an opinion on the choreography, and the choreographer should have an opinion on the staging. The staging also, in certain configurations, should kind of influence the choices you make.
And you know what? Here's another thing. Write sometimes in pairs, in trios, and in quads.
That's a great way to create variety.
And you're going to have a whole different look, I swear to you.
Yep.
And the judges will be blown away with it. It will force you, as Carl said, to write in a different manner.
It also gives the impression, whether it's the same skills or not, of variety and depth.
That's absolutely correct.
Just those different configurations.
Go through the season, you clean, which means you're accurate in your technique.
Yep.
Then you refine, which means that you layer in and re-emphasize the whole musicality aspect. And I don't care that musicality doesn't appear in the IA score sheets. It's a fact of life.
Yeah, it's that musicianship.
Oh,
the ability to be able to play, to do what they do in a musical manner.
The whole artistry of what you're doing.
There you go, and that's where those dynamics come in. You know, you went back and you really talked about refinement, and at some point we all see examples of groups that will clean the life out of things.
Oh, and they're sterile and boring.
And where the technique becomes the skill as opposed to the skill itself. And the technique, you know, if it's not the Japanese no theater, it's not as interesting. The technique should be there to support the delivery of the skill and the communication of the performer.
Absolutely.
The technique itself is not the thing to showcase.
So important.
Yeah.
In addition to the number of planes you cut, is the personality and the dynamics and the expressive quality.
Sure.
And you know that you always have the 3 great resources, the manual and Carl and me. And please feel free to contact us should that become helpful.
Absolutely. This worksheet's a really, really good one. Focus on part 3 right as you go to writing.
Absolutely.
Don't wait too late for this one. This is a good one.
Great.
All righty.